Today I've got your Maniac movie review. This movie stars Elijah Wood, and I will never look at Frodo Baggins the same way again after watching this movie. This movie is about a guy named Frank. Ironically, the director's name is also Frank. He plays a there's something seriously wrong with this guy. He has this obsession with mannequins, and he even owns a mannequin shop where he's sort of basically trying to restore all these antiques. I pretty much was really hoping to see this movie when I first heard about it, but I ended up seeing it just a few days ago. It was because I had seen one of the international trailers for it, Elijah Wood in it, and I hadn't really seen him act like this. I saw him in Sin City, so if you've seen that movie, you know how crazy he was in that, and just how disturbing his role was. I feel definitely he stepped up his game in this movie. He's kind of like Patrick Bateman, just going around and finding all these chicks and just killing them in cold blood, bringing them back to his shop. And this is where it sort of reminded me of Inglourious Basterds with the scalps and stuff. If you know what happens there, I mean, it just gets 2 times as crazy. I at first, didn't know what to expect from seeing this movie. I thought it was gonna be sort of a dramatic horror movie, kind of like Psycho. He was gonna play some sort of Norman Bates type character. A few segments in this movie that had little flashback scenes of his mother, so I was like, this reminds me a lot like Psycho and Norman Bates. So he's kind of like Patrick Bateman, Norman Bates, and his character from Sin City. He ends up meeting this one girl who he sort of has an attraction to, but I feel like this attraction will turn into more of an obsession later on. So I was like, oh no, but she seems like a really nice girl. I mean, she's a French photographer. She definitely has a lot of potential, and maybe it was gonna be one of those things maybe she's gonna change him and he's gonna change his ways. But of course, in the condition that he was in, I mean, it was just really brutal and emotional and intense, and you could just see even in his eyes. I mean, I definitely think you can just tell he was just so immersed in this role. I definitely define this movie as being more of a sort of horror, sort of slasher type movie. I will admit that a couple times, and I am of course a huge horror movie buff, and I've said this a million times, but this movie is one of the few movies where I'm actually sitting down watching it and I literally had to hide under my covers. I couldn't even bear to watch it a couple times. It was just so graphic and gruesome, and I mean, it didn't make me sick, obviously, unlike Human Centipede 2. Definitely not the first one. The second one, and maybe a little bit of VHS, but this one definitely had that sort of element of just being really, really gruesome and horrifying. I was just really shocked for the type of film that it was, and I really think that definitely was a plus for me, because you're trying to figure out who this character is and trying to figure out his motives, just the reasons why he does the things that he does. It gets really crazy. The torture that he brings to his victims is it's escalating as the movie goes on. I just found that really interesting. This kind of turns out to be psychological thriller / horror movie. I really like that aspect. I mean, it doesn't have a twist to it. It's just the intensity just keeps building and building, and then you just see his character almost break down, and just bit by bit, and he's kind of almost in the same state as his victims. This movie was really intense, really terrifying. I would recommend seeing it because it is unlike a horror movie that you would typically see. I would say it's also not your typical slasher film, but it's also one of Elijah Wood's better films because it's something you wouldn't expect him to do. I definitely think that these type of roles are ones that are just perfect for him. I mean, I know I was definitely surprised when I found out he was doing a movie like this, especially seeing him in obviously Lord of the Rings. And it definitely was, I mean, a really good choice, especially seeing him in Sin City. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought of Maniac, and what did you think of Elijah Wood's performance as Frank. You guys can subscribe to my channel. I've got more movie reviews, movie updates, come back every week for a Chill Thursday video. You guys can also like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, and I will see you guys later.